Welcome to Ensuring Success 2023. This is session 2 of 14. We are so glad you're with us today. And if you were at session 1 and here again now, you have the unique opportunity to refer to yourself as a 14-hour warrior if you stay through all 14 hours of this. So we hope that you're going to stick around with us because we're doing it for 14 hours, so you should too. I'm Gail Perry, Editor-in-Chief of CPA Practice Advisor. And I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors for this event because they're the ones that make this possible and allow us to offer 14 hours of continuing education credit for free. So our sponsors this year are ADP, Avalara, BotKeeper, Canopy, Instead by Corby, CPA.com, eFile for Biz, Relay, WriteWorks, SafeSend, SureLink, Walters Kluwer, Xero, and Zoho. So thank you to all of them for making this possible. And I want to give, for those of you who are just joining us, give you a quick summary of how to get CPE credit. What we do is we provide 3 codes during the session. We'll break 3 times and tell you that we're presenting on the bottom of the screen a CPE code that you'll need to record in order to get your credit. So 3 times you'll hear this sound. And that's a reminder to write down the code. And then at the end of the day, at the end of the week, next year, I mean, within the next year, you can go to our site and click on the CPE option and enter all the codes you collected and download your certificates right on the site. So with that, I want to take a moment to introduce our panel for this session, which is Tales from the Remote Workforce. And I'm joined by Al-Nesha Jones and Joey Havens and Jeff Phillips and my co-moderator, Alexander D. Felice. So I'd like each of them to introduce themselves real quickly. Al-Nesha.
Good morning, I'm Al-Nesha. I'm a CPA and the founder of ACE Group, where we empower small business owners to grow strong and sustainable businesses. I'm based in West Orange, New Jersey. Thanks so much for having me.
And hello, I'm Joey Havens, and I'm with Horn LLP, a national firm, and just excited to be here today. And remote work has just been a big part of our growth and everything that we've been doing.
Good morning, I'm Jeff Phillips. I'm the CEO of Paget Business Services, and I'm the founder of a company called Accounting Fly. Accounting Fly has been hiring remote CPAs into accounting firms for over a decade. And so the remote world is something that we know a lot from trial and a lot of error, but we've placed hundreds of CPAs into firms that are here in the U.S.
And I'm Alexandra D. Felice, Director of Marketing and Business Development for Payne and Fears Law Firm in Southern California. I am co-moderating all 14 sessions with Gail. I am taking questions from the audience and poll questions, and I am the designated bell ringer.
And speaking of questions from the audience, we want to remind you that on your screen under the window where you see us, there's a little box that says Ask a Question. And you can enter anything you'd like there, but if you have questions for our speakers, enter them there and we'll convey them to the speakers live. Also, if you have any questions, technical issues, or any problem, you can just enter it there and we'll have somebody on staff who's dealing with those issues as well. So we're going to be talking about remote work here. I'd like to mention the fact that a lot of things changed during COVID, and when a lot of firms didn't even consider allowing remote work previous to COVID. Now it seems like it's kind of standard operating procedure for a lot of companies. So let's hear about the case for remote work. What makes it a good thing?
I can probably start with that. And I think it's important to set the stage that there's letting your local staff work from home. And what I consider remote work to be is some of my staff don't live in the same city as me. And we have a team that's here in the office and a team that can work in the United States. They can work globally through offshoring. They can work in the United States as a contractor. So while I think there is a huge rise of firms allowing local staff to work at home, I think we are still dipping our toes in the water of tapping into the benefits of hiring staff, no matter where they work. But the case is simple. A lot of managing partners and owners that I know are far more comfortable offshoring to India than they are hiring someone in the United States that has a CPA that's going to work from home. Well, there's an entire population of candidates in the U.S. who would be willing to work from home. So you fill the job so fast if you would just stop caring where in the U.S. that they lived, right? Whether it's full-time or freelance. Our business is essentially a job board, and we get 8 times more applicants for a remote job than we do any location-based job because it is so popular. What trends are you capitalizing? You're capitalizing on the desire for work-life balance and flexibility. You can make a remote hire in just about any CPA role in about 40 days. We have firms at Paget that have been trying to hire in markets for tax managers for 18 months, right? So make the hire, find the best player for the position, do it quickly. So that's the case for me. I don't know what you guys see.
For me, I started my firm in an office, but I worked remotely. My daughter was not even 2 months old when I started the business, and I needed flexibility, and I know that that's what the team members I have need because I happen to run a team of all moms, and that is totally by happenstance, but I love working with them, and I find that they're a lot more happy when they are not stressed about the commute or when their children have changes in schedule. They can throw a load in the laundry, so they're not doing that in the evening. It just creates for a lot more balance, and my goal is to make sure I have a really happy team. Happy team members do happy work. Happy work brings more revenue in for the firm, so it's just a win-win situation for everybody.
That's great.
Yeah, I tend to agree with both of you, and I think for our firm, which we've had, significant growth, and one of the things that I encourage people to do when they think about remote work and flexibility around that is experiment. And we found that we needed all of those things you talked about, Jeff. I mean, we've done offshoring, we do the gig economy. When you need a special skill or got a big project to do somewhere, we've hired people all over the U.S. Who are permanent remote Horn team members. And then we have the flexibility for our existing staff to work from anywhere they want to. Now, due to some of the cyber concerns now, if you're going outside the U.S., you got to put us on notice, and we've got to follow you with that. But other than that, I think it's a little bit of experimenting and find out what's unique for you and the work you're doing, and whether you're running a big project or a small project, or you're just using tax help. There's answers out there, and it's usually not right under your roof.
There's a huge narrative in our industry that there's a talent crisis. You cannot open any media or go on any website and not see that. And I think there's a lot that's true to that. But I think what employers are missing is there are lots of opportunities to hire if you're in the remote game. We have a saying, Joe, that's about the experimenting is ready, fire, aim. You got to try this stuff, and you're going to make some mistakes, and you're going to get some things wrong. And I work with a lot of firms who will make the mistake and then say remote hiring is not for me, letting our folks work from home is no longer for me, and they pull back that flexibility that Al-Nesha offers her staff, which is probably why they love working for you.
Thank you.
And so you just got to hang with it, I think.
So Jeff, Gail and I love horror stories, as you know. So we don't just want to know that people made mistakes. Can you give us examples of what people did wrong so that our audience out here can benefit from these horrible things that happened to them?
The first thing that came to my mind is a firm that we know in San Francisco, and had 2 people that they were hired remotely. They had shipped them their laptops, and they had a start date. And I don't know why I remember this date. It was December the 12th of 2019. It was right before the pandemic started. And my company had made these 2 placements. We're thrilled for them, both tax managers. Both people no-showed on their first day of work.
No-showed to their own house?
No-showed to the job, to their remote job. And so the horror story is there's one of the horror stories.
But they got a laptop out of it?
Yeah, well, we chased them down and got the laptop. Laptops. There were 2 laptops involved. And so the horror story was they were going into busy season, made 2 hires. We facilitated the hires, and these two folks no-showed, and they did not. They bailed on the firm.
Wow.
They disappeared, and we did get the laptops back. But that's a horror story. I think with remote work, there's a greater degree of flakiness, and so, yeah. So I hear that a lot of people giving a job offer to someone on a remote, and they just kind of disappear. So that is a common horror story you got to deal with.
Yeah.
We're going to break just briefly here to put on the bottom of the screen your first CPE code for this session.
Jeff really wants to hit it. When I get to the we'll
I'm
see.
gonna hit it.
Make sure that you record this code. It's the first of 3 that you'll get in order so that you can get credit for this session. Okay, continue. Other horror stories or just bad experiences that kind of went bad with remote people?
Yeah. So for one, during the pandemic, we were hiring, and I had a candidate who was referred to me, and she seemed like such a good fit. She worked for very large corporations. I knew who was sending her to me, and we almost proceeded without having the background results back because they, it varies. They could take 3 days, they could take 10 days. And we were going to ship the laptop to this team member, and I communicated that to her that, hey, listen, we could send it so that you're prepared for your first day, but we are still waiting for some background things to come back. And she hesitated, and it turned out that nearly everything on her resume was false. The schooling, the employers,
Wow.
all of it was incorrect. And I hesitated because this person was referred to me by someone else that I really knew. So that was a horror story. And the other one is really my fault in that when I initially began hiring, and we always hired hybrid, even pre-pandemic, remote, I didn't clearly define how you'd be evaluated and clearly define what was to be expected of you, and did not lay out things like, do you have to have your camera on? Do you not have to have your camera on? Are you able to work whenever or wherever, right? For us, we define remote as from your home, not the beach in Hawaii. Like
Yeah,
remote
we
is
have a follow-up question on that too. So.
Yeah, we want you to work exactly where you told us that you'd be working, and that's really for our client security. So not laying those things out meant that we had to go back and define those things and communicate it to our team. But I mean, it causes for hiccups down the line. And then making sure that you know all of the state laws when hiring, because you open yourself up to a lot of different things when you begin hiring in different states. And just making sure that you understand what creates nexus and what employment laws there are in those states if you're going to hire outside of your regular state.
Yeah, we've experienced a few missing laptops. We've had, a bad resume or two, but I also had to remind our team, we've had that when we hired in the location before too. It's not just too remote. But I would like to flip it a little bit, and because that's about the remote worker. One of the worst phone calls I got was from a very, very skilled manager that we were very fortunate to get. The reason we got her was because we offered this remote opportunity. And then 6 months later, I got that phone call that said, this really isn't for me, this company, because I've only heard from my direct supervisor 4 times in 6 months. And, I get my work assignments, but I thought I would be more part of the company, and that's the one that broke my heart.
That hurts.
Yeah.
Did you? Well, every horror story has hopefully something you grow from. So I'm curious, what happened next? How did you adjust to that?
Well, we use that story because sometimes I think it's your failures that teach you the most. And we use that to start to build exactly what you were saying, Al-Nesha, is to build structure around and having clarity and just over-communicating. You have to be ruthless in prioritization and schedule check-ins and those kind of things. And so we learned from that, and we started building those expectations with our performance leaders and anybody that had a remote worker on their team.
Yeah.
There's training to be done around it.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely. It brings to mind, I cannot quote it for you, but I know, I promise you it exists. It's a study about why knowledge workers leave their jobs in the first 6 months. Right. So this triggered this memory when you said she left in the first 6 months. And the 3 reasons why people leave prematurely boils down to 3 reasons. They're not clear on their job, they don't have what they need to do their job, and they're lonely. They're not connected to the team they're on. And almost every time there's a failure inside a firm, whether they're remote or they're right next to you, it usually is connected to one of those 3 reasons, or the manager kind of failing to deliver those 3 reasons.
Yeah, I think the firm fails more than, because the talent level out there is incredible. The opportunity is incredible. And I'm going to go back, this is a pet peeve of mine, but I'm going to go back to this. People are not leaving our profession. They're leaving our leadership. They're leaving our story because we're not telling the kind of story that we should be telling. And we're not leading in a people-first mindset.
So Jeff, repeat what those 3 things were, please, the reasons that they leave. They're lonely, which stands out because it made me a little sad.
Yeah, people aren't clear. People are not getting the following 3 things from their employer, and we have to go back to what you just said. But they're not clear on what their job is.
Okay.
I don't know what to do. They do not have the tools to be successful in their job. Right? I'm being held back from being successful.
Resources.
Yeah, resources, training, again, clarity and communication. And the third was loneliness. I'm not connected.
Connection.
And it's connection, and that's
Yeah.
how it's circling back to what Joey's saying, right?
Right.
So how do you create this culture of connectivity, and how do you feel if someone is off and you could, like, if someone's depressed and I'm in person with them, I walk by and I'm like, something's wrong with this person, right? But if you have rules that you don't have to have your camera on all the times, how do you know? How do you create that connection?
Yeah, I think it starts from the recruitment process to onboarding. The onboarding process is so critical. It's not just getting a laptop in the mail. The swag, the whole thing that you do for your normal staff, you do for a remote worker.
So give some examples. What would you give them?
They would get a package that would have horn and a horn shirt and a horn book and notes. They'd get assigned a buddy that, hey, go to this person.
Yeah.
Al-Nesha is going to be your buddy, and get introduced to them.
She seems like a good
I'm a good buddy.
You're a great buddy. I can
you.
tell that. And so you build that structure. You have scheduled check-ins, and leadership has to be involved. In other words, leaders have to be involved in that onboarding, and they need some check-in points. Not necessarily their performance advisor or their manager, but somebody else in leadership needs to check in on that person.
Okay, so that's the check-in, and what is I'd like to hear about, like, what does the check-in involve, and then what does a buddy do?
A buddy's more casual, like you develop a peer relationship.
Like,
and,
here's the politics,
hey,
or whatever.
I can't get this software to work, and I put it in at help desk. Is there a faster way to get an answer? Things like that. And that's part of it. Working remote is not easy.
No.
And you got to demonstrate the empathy. They have challenges that you don't have when you're sitting in the office.
Okay, so that's the buddy. What's the check-in? What are the 2 or 3 things that you should be asking at a check-in?
We've hired Jeff, and he works on your team. You're part of my team. And I know Jeff is a very valued, skilled person that we've added to our team. And so 2 weeks in, Jeff gets an appointment scheduled, Zoom call with me, and I get to introduce myself to him and say, look, I wanted to check in. How's your first 2 weeks gone? What's been the biggest challenge for you? What's been the biggest success? What would you tell us to change about how we're onboarding?
I love that question.
Even after two weeks, what would you like us to change about how we're onboarding?
Nice.
Will they give you honest answers?
Oh, absolutely.
If you ask.
If you ask, we rarely asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to add one to that. Because of failures we've had in hiring, we add a step to our onboarding where, someone gets a job offer and then a month later they show up, right? In that month, it's a really important time. So we want peers of the new hire reaching out by phone and by social media and email, but especially by phone, to call and try to build some emotional connection to them before they start. We think that's really important.
That's interesting because you're saying especially by phone, and it seems so rare, even when that you're even in a hybrid situation that you call anyone on the phone anymore.
Right.
Do we even need them? Right? It's all like chat and whatever else.
Is a phone call the new handwritten note?
I think so.
Yeah.
I encourage. That's what I encourage.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The other thing that we do is remember how we said not being clear on your job is so important. I don't want you filling out paperwork as a new hire on day one. I want you sitting with your leader, hearing them share their vision for the team, for how we work, for what is expected of you and your role and the results that you should be accomplishing. It's a chance to ask questions and get feedback. The onboarding process, it gives the new hire a chance to hit the ground running and establish deep connections and clear, kind of accountability inside that firm.
And an understanding of who the firm is and what's your mission and your values, and really reinforcing that. And with remote work, I really believe, and actually we don't do this enough anyway, leadership has to continue to repeat that over and over again.
And this is a lot of soft skills that CPAs don't necessarily possess, not to make a stereotype, but so who is it? If you're in a small firm, you don't have a dedicated HR person or a marketing professional, whose job is it, or how can you make your
small firm owner here?
We have a small firm owner
right?
on this panel.
Yeah,
right. It's me. And I believe so strongly in leading with authenticity. I think it's so important that we show up as our true selves. And by doing that, we give our teams permission to do the same. So we do a Monday meeting every week. We have a Monday weekly team meeting. And we rate our weekend 1 through 10. We rate our day 1 through 10. It gives me sort of insight into how my team's feeling. I am not one to say, we're a family, because I think that's so cliche. We're not a family, but we're a tight-knit team. And I want you to feel really comfortable to tell me if things aren't going so well for you. I believe very strongly in creating a culture and a firm where nothing's an emergency. I'm not a brain surgeon. I don't run a team of brain surgeons. So if we need to pivot things to make sure that we can protect you and keep your mental and physical health in good shape, then that's my job as a small business owner who runs a small team. And if I notice that a team member's off, that's a conversation I'm going to have offline with that team member. But I talk to every team member alone, one-on-one every week, and then we connect as a team. And I think that helps in creating and fostering an environment where people feel comfortable to say how they're feeling, especially when I'm not at a 10. Every weekend's not a 10. Every day is not a 10.
So, but you're feeling them out personally too, right? That's
Absolutely.
Because
I work with humans. I don't work with robots.
That's the hard thing. I feel like ever since COVID, I just give people the benefit of the doubt more than ever, because you don't know what they're going through. Why is this person attacking me right now? Well, I just got into an accident. I don't have my car. Whatever the case might be, right? So I assume that these meetings are video required then.
So almost always we want the video, but if there's something going on, right, that you would not want to attend this conference with the video, just tell me, right, and turn the camera off. It's perfectly fine. We're not going to stress. We don't see each other in person, and I've worked jobs where I was in the office every day, and if you were in a car accident or something was going on at home, you had time at the water cooler to talk to your friend about what was going on. We lose that in a remote environment. So we still have to create opportunities to feel like we're in the cafeteria or at the water cooler, where you could tell somebody that you trust, hey, listen, this is what's going on, and this is why I feel a little off. We still have to find ways to create those outlets, even in a remote environment. So we prefer cameras on. we're also flexible if the camera needs to be off.
Is there a red flag or a point to which the same person keeps over and over being like, can't be on camera, where you're like, something's going on here?
For sure. I think so. I do my best not to like make assumptions. I'm very big on like, you tell me what that is. But I think in being totally honest, we do live in an environment right now where people work several jobs at the same time, several full-time, part-time, remote jobs. So there could very well be something going on that's not beneficial to your
They're double dipping on
employer.
something
Exactly.
else. Yeah.
But I think that's worth having the conversation about, because there could also be something going on at home that prevents it, but their work is not impacted. And you have to decide whether or not that hurts your organization and creates a bad environment for other team members. That's something I would take on a case-by-case basis. But is that a red flag? Absolutely. Like big red flag, for sure.
Yeah, we've seen that too. And I think everything Al-Nesha said is just brilliant. In fact, whether you're a small firm or a big firm, it's that connection and that people focus for every team. You're just building those blocks up in a bigger firm. Every team needs to operate like that, whether they're remote or not.
Yep.
We want to take a moment to post the second CPE code on our screen.
She got you again.
So be sure to write this down if you're planning on collecting CPE credit for this session. Do we have polling questions for this
Yes,
session?
actually, this is a good transition because I launched a poll secretly without telling you guys in the beginning, and it's something that I wanted to get into, which is how the audience, what does remote work mean to you? And the choices were team members can work from anywhere, team members can work from a house, any house, they can only work from their house, or are they even working? Okay, so the vast majority, almost 87% of the viewers here said work from anywhere. But you guys both said something. So I'm going to start with Al-Nesha about, you said, like, no, you're working in your house, you're not working in Hawaii. Explain what the exact rules are and the reason behind those.
For sure. So our preference is that you are working from your designated home office. Again, if there were extenuating circumstances and you are making us aware of that and you're getting our approval, then we'll approve that. But we work with client-sensitive matters. You will have client calls. There could be things that are private on your screen. And for that reason, we can't have you working from Starbucks or perhaps like at the airplane. I was talking about how I get on the plane every time and I have like such plans and goals, and then I get a mimosa and watch Netflix. But I don't want you working from a place where you could be displaying confidential information. It's our job to protect that client's information. And for that reason, it can't be literally from anywhere, at least not with our approval.
Okay, and then before I get to Jeff, Joey, I want to take it to a much higher level because you mentioned international, like there's all other kinds of issues with that. So are you allowing international workers, and if so, what are the precautions that you're putting in place for that?
Well, it's more of a cyber risk thing for us, and so if somebody's going to be, just say in Europe for 2 weeks, and we've got responsibility. They're going to work some during that time. They're going to be over there. Then that's got to be approved. But the same thing. It's back to clarity and guardrails and structure. But I also believe in the flexibility that there are times when we should allow those. It doesn't have to be at their normal home workplace. It can be from the condo on 30A in Destin.
Like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it might be that it's okay for one of Al-Nesha's tax manager to go and pick up her sick kid at school and not report in to Al-Nesha because she trusts her.
Yep.
And she's got the clarity that the managing partner of the firm laid out about that. And I imagine you probably had that conversation with your team of what
Absolutely.
you have a team of all moms, and working for you is probably a blessing for them because they can work their job, have a career, but also have flexibility. And you're not asking the question that I hear all the time: how do I know if they're not working?
Because I would know. I know because I know what it is that you're working on. We use project management software. We know where the tasks are. As long as those things are in line, then we are good. You do not have to ask me permission to pick your child up or go to a Christmas concert or see your doctor. I want you to be in a good headspace. I want you to feel like you're meeting your goals at home and at work. I want you to find the balance that works for you. And I've done that, right? I'm an early riser. A lot of days I work early because I know I have class parent responsibilities. And I want you to be a class parent too if you want to be that, because I trust that you will fit it in. I trust that you'll keep me abreast of your priorities and what it is that you're working on. I want you to feel comfortable to let me know if you've bumped into delay. And I want to create the kind of environment where the entire team knows you have that level of flexibility. Please don't bother texting me and explaining to me that you have to pick the child up. Pick the child up. We can talk later. Just go get the child first. And all of our meetings are scheduled in advance. We don't do like random like check-in calls. We schedule our meetings in advance to create that level of flexibility.
Sounds like your team trusts you, and vice versa.
I sure hope so.
So let's move to the issue of trust, because I have a follow-up question on that. But I did launch a survey, another survey. I'm being very secretive this session and not telling you guys when I'm doing this. And the question was whether they have made fully remote hires before, and 67% said no, and 33% said yes. And so I'd like to know if you guys can see in the chat, if you want to just put in your reasons for why you haven't hired someone, then we can share that with the panelists and see if maybe there's a workaround for that. So talking about trust, before COVID, I had a job where there was 3 people in my position, and I was allowed to work from home twice a month. And everyone was like, why does Alexandra get to do this? And the answer was she's uber responsive. And I was so worried that, like, if I went to the bathroom, if I sneezed and I didn't answer an IM, that it would be like, Alexandra's clearly not working.
Yeah.
But you made it very clear that things are an emergency, and we talked about what, are you allowed to really work any hours? Do you have to work set hours? How do you figure, what is the level of responsiveness that's expected?
Yep.
Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
We work a 4-day work week. And that started last year, and we got through the whole tax season with it, so it's here to stay. We're Monday through Thursday. Our team meetings are on Mondays. We have our one-on-one meeting scheduled when it's convenient for all team members, and then we do a team huddle. You are expected to be available for those meetings unless you've made us aware that you are unavailable. We ask that you update your status. So we use G Suite. So if you're unavailable, we want you to put that you're unavailable. But again, nothing here is a true emergency. So if I send you a message and you don't respond immediately or within 20 minutes or 30 minutes, I'm not going to panic about that, because if you are actually unavailable for the day, my expectation is that you have expressed you're unavailable for the day. If I didn't hear back from you for a whole day, I would start to get concerned. That has not been the case, but I don't expect an immediate response to any of the messages that I send. And because we've gotten to the place where employees know they can trust us, if you're unavailable, I don't even need to know why you're unavailable. Just mark that you're unavailable so that I know not to expect a response from you. I don't need to know what doctor appointment you have or any of that. That's really...
I tell my coordinator I do way TMI. I don't know. It's like built into us that we have to have an excuse, right, about why we're not there. So
yeah, let it go. How important is clarity here? If you can say up front and then adjust what our communication, how we communicate and when we communicate, you can solve so many problems. I know at our recruitment agency, a Slack message gets returned within the day, but a text message is urgent. So you text me if it's urgent. Slack is the same day. Email is a day or 2 or 3. And that's kind of our cadence. And
you tell that to people when you onboard, that like that's internal, or is that also?
No, that's internal.
What about for your clients?
That's written down internally so that we have expectations about how we communicate with one another.
Okay.
So we laid that out, and things like, I don't need to know that you're going to the doctor. You just need to mark that you're unavailable.
Yep.
You're communicating trust. You probably laid that out when you hired them, or you made an adjustment and laid that out. And that's the trial and error Joey's talking about with remote work. And really, I don't even see remote work. I just see work. And some of our team don't work in the office with us, but how we communicate has to have its set of rules and expectations.
Yeah, I call them team-level agreements, and that's basically what you're
I like
using.
that.
And it varies from team to team. That's the thing that makes remote work and flexibility. I mean, we're kind of moving into flexibility. is that it's unique to the individual and their role and their team. And so it's complex. But if you give the benefit of good intentions and you have good guardrails, the things and examples you're giving work out great. And there is a big shift in mindset from this time legacy business model to results and outcomes.
Yes.
I'm more concerned with what are the outcomes and results we're getting,
Yep.
not how long somebody was logged in on a computer.
Yep.
And that's probably one of the dangers as we move into this is those two things are going to, a lot of firms will fail at remote work because the big brother thoughts of I got to control this.
Well, and it's also, I'm not going to go down this tangent, but I'm sure it'll come up many times during the next 2 days is how you bill, right? So it's like if they could get their work done in less than 40 hours and they're not working 40 hours, is that okay?
And they would lose, and for that reason, that's not how we want to compensate our team members. I do not want to force you to take longer on a task because you don't want to short your hours.
I could hug you.
Oh, I could hug you.
Hugging uninsured success.
Such wisdom there.
Yeah, I just don't think that's fair because now I'm not asking you to become more efficient. I'm actually just asking you to, can you just drag this out and can you make yourself not available for any other work because you don't want to short your paycheck? If you get it done quicker, then good for you.
Hey,
Right.
man,
We
good
just
for
have to
all
keep
of us.
clients satisfied. That's all I'm concerned with. Let's keep clients satisfied and let's keep you sane and in a really good headspace. And if we're doing those things, then we win. And if we do them sooner than we thought, then we really win. And that's okay.
And it would be okay if that team member pulled back a little bit after they finished the work and did a great job. You would have no problem with that, right?
No.
I don't either.
No.
Mental health, burnout,
That's it.
creativity, innovation goes up.
Right.
All of those things happen.
Yep.
The timesheet just drags our profession down.
Yeah.
I think we need to take a break for our, just a quick moment to post our last CPE code on the screen.
I think I'll delegate to Jeff this time.
Yay.
Okay,
Get used to that.
You should see the last CPE code, the third code for this session. And let's continue a little bit with talking about firm culture because when you've got everyone in the office at the same place physically, it's easy to create a sense of, what it's like to be at work every day. It's a little bit different when you've got remote employees. But I'm going to start with Joey because he's got like hundreds of remote employees and he is all about firm culture. And in fact, I have a visual aid, just a second here. So Joey literally wrote the book on this. So we'll just have this up here.
Oh,
Nice.
how sweet.
Yeah.
look.
But tell us a little bit about how you've developed and maintained firm culture when you've got at least a quarter or a third of your workforce remote.
I think there's two big words: be intentional. And everything we've talked about this morning, it's all about being intentional. It's communication, clarity. You have to experiment. Individuals, you said this, it's people that I'm leading and influencing, I'm not managing. And so it's about consistency, empathy, connection, and being intentional with that. They need as much connection as somebody that you see at the water cooler every day. And the other thing is that remote work and flexibility in general works better when the team sees the leaders doing it also.
Yep.
If they see the leader is always at the office and working at the office, then people don't believe that it's okay to do remote work.
Yep.
So that's some of the big pieces of the culture thing. It's clarity, empathy, consistency, onboarding, and that excellence anywhere mindset. And that's one of the toughest things, I think, for the profession.
I'm curious how, so I love the values that you're talking about and building the culture. It's probably, from your experiences at your firm, do any tactics come to mind that where you were able to, enhance the culture, deliver culture, that especially including this remote workforce, where you guys found some wins in building the culture of your business?
I think it's from all of those mistakes we talked about when we first started and getting those phone calls. We realized we've got to be very intentional with this. And your idea about the onboarding. Now, I will say this. I think in remote workers, we find that the time that we give them to go and when they come on board is shorter than it is on location-based employees sometimes. And I don't know why that is. I think it's because sometimes they're filling an immediate need. But we found out we got to be very deliberate and very intentional to make sure that onboarding and that connection happens.
One of the things that I heard to connect these two stories was how you ask your team questions, rate your weekend, rate your day. It's checking in. One of my favorite tactics to build culture is asking questions. And one of the firms that I'm close with, we implemented a survey that they do on a weekly basis. That is, they were at a bad turnover spot. They were in I can't say the number because I don't want to get back to these folks, but they were losing a lot of people. They implemented one thing that really cut it in half in about a year. They sent a weekly survey, and this is going to sound familiar, but it's, do you have what you need to do your job? Are you clear on what your role is? And how's your work-life balance? Right.
Okay, repeat those one more time so people can write this down.
I forgot them all. Are you clear? Are you clear on what your job is?
Are you clear on what your job is?
Do you have what you need to do your job?
Going back to the resources situation.
And how is your work-life balance? 1 to 5. They actually automated it, just sent it out via Slack, their team chat. This is a fully remote company, right? And so if anybody scores, not everybody answers the survey every week, but they have the opportunity to answer the survey. And so I remember one story in particular. Somebody answered 1, on work-life balance. So as is their process, the manager, that team manager, picks up the phone and calls the person. Why do you have a 1? What's going on? Turns out this employee had a sick parent that she needed to take care of and felt like the firm was not going to support her in this, and she was looking for other jobs. Thank goodness they asked, because they negotiated a new time work plan with her, kept her inside the business, which was incredibly valuable, and she was able to take care of her personal need. And I just don't think that would have happened if they didn't have the culture of asking their team, caring enough to ask. So I would encourage, I think we're too hung up on the culture of remote versus non-remote. Let's just build good culture inside our companies. I don't care where your people work, but asking them questions is a great way to start.
Yeah, be generous with questions. And again, back to the research, the number one success factor in remote work is, do I trust the company I'm working for? And everything you talked about is what that builds trust, the communication, the connection, the clarity, the consistency.
So speaking of questions, we do have a question from the audience. And any of you can take this, which is advice for interviewing candidates for fully remote positions. How would those interview questions, I guess it just says for advice for interviewing. I guess it could be medium, it could be types of questions.
I'll go first, but I know everybody has an opinion. If you're interviewing somebody for remote work, let's find out, can they be a professional remotely? So are they in their bathroom? Are they wearing exercise gear? So first of all,
happens.
It happens.
You got to interview on Zoom or Teams. So can they log in? Can they get there without an issue? Are they wearing the appropriate clothes? Do they have an appropriate background? Remember, they're going to be talking to your clients from this. So if they can't get these basics right, I would ding them. That's what we call in the recruiting world.
Don't ding them. People are gonna think they have some key. Calm down. You got one chance.
So then I think, but I think you start with that. That's my first take. What about you all?
I think that's huge. We've had people who show up and they are not dressed, or they are not in a quiet environment. And we indicate, like, we changed our process. We're constantly changing them. We do prep where my operations manager, she reaches out to you and she helps you to prepare for that interview. So she suggests to you that you are showing up where you would typically have worked from. We want to see where you would be working from. Don't use any faux backgrounds, virtual backgrounds. Don't use those. Business casual, at least for what we can see. We don't care if you have on pajama bottoms and footy, socks. We won't see that. Make sure that your volume is good. Test your Zoom. She does that call with them, and she offers to, call on Zoom to make sure that they feel confident there. So we're doing everything we can to prepare there. When it comes to the questions, we're specifically asking questions that will help us to understand how you self-monitor. What are you doing to get yourself into some sort of system? How do you learn best? Because I cannot say just come over to my desk and stand over my shoulder or, go watch so-and-so. So how do you best learn? How do you retain information? What is your ideal schedule? Forget what we said. Are you a morning person? Do you work better in the evening? When would we get the best output from you? How do you see yourself contributing to this team? Since we have to take the physical part out, so we want to understand, how well do you work alone? Some people have said, you know what, I don't even like working alone. Right? So, and that doesn't mean that you can't work a remote job. It just tells us that we have to make sure that we are appropriately engaging with you and not leaving you to your own devices. So our interview questions are very centered on how could we best support you if we find that you're a good fit.
Yeah, and I think past those questions and past the eyeball test, you want to ask some questions that are open-ended, like, Jeff, tell me what you see as one of your greatest successes as a remote worker. What's one of your greatest accomplishments? What's one of the biggest challenges you've overcome working remotely? Just getting there, how did they get past those challenges? How do they see that? And it'll tell you a lot about their mindset.
So we had a question that went out to our audience.
Yes, the question was, what is your biggest concern when it comes to remote staff? And it's kind of all over the board. Well, the last one was, I'm just scared, which actually 4.5% said that. The number 2 was culture. You can't have a great culture without a remote staff. The next 31% said, are they even working? Again, how do you keep them productive? And then going back to Joey's thing about security, and we will have some sessions about security coming up later in Ensuring Success that you'll definitely want to pay attention to, but that's almost 40% of people said, how can I protect the client's data with everyone working in different locations?
That was the top answer?
Yeah, 40%.
You want to speak to that?
Okay, so when you're worried about them working in different locations, well, first I think we have to get down to what is your actual concern there, because a lot of the times what we're saying our concerns aren't actually what our concerns are. If you're worried about the locations and things like that, have you done everything you could do to ensure that your security, your software, all those things are up to par? So we only use cloud-based security. Everything we use, you log into from a website. We use a password manager, all those sort of things. As far as time zone, we have employees that are only in our time zone, but time zone is not exactly what frightens me. Things like California employment law actually frighten me a lot more than time zones and things like that. I think it really all gets back to, what is it that you're doing to tighten up your processes, your workflows, those sort of things. I find that all of these things hint toward gaps in that process, and we've only strengthened our processes by hiring remote employees. I think when they're in person, you can kind of flail your way through it. But when someone's not in your face, you really have to have had those processes very tight. You'll have to know what their role is. You'll have to be really good about evaluating performance, all those sort of things. I think location sort of pushes the rest of that stuff. Like, the location's not the issue. The issue is the lack of progress in your processes.
Anything else to add, guys?
I got nothing out of that.
All right. Gail, do you want to go to some key takeaways?
Yeah, just a second. Let's pull those up. So we do have a few takeaways for you at the end of this session. Also, I think I can just read this. We're going to send you some resources when the session is over. Our speakers have all compiled some favorite links and blogs, tips for you. So you'll see that. We'll send it to you, and you'll also see it on our website when we post the archived versions of these. But one of the things we're providing you with is Accounting Fly's hybrid hiring for tax season tips. So we'll be sending you the link to that. And just another comment, employee efficiency can be measured both in the brick and mortar workplace and in a remote environment. Both require diligence, communication, and a process. So I think we've covered all those things today, which I think is really helpful. We hope that you have found this very helpful. We really want to thank all of our speakers for participating today and sharing their insights. Any parting comments from any of you?
Be intentional.
All right, be intentional.
I love it.
That's where we'll leave it. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you again at the top of the hour.